Hello everybody, I'm Ramses.
And I'm the Vesper.
And we're here for another edition of Vespors Retro Reviews, part of our pilot review series. Boy, we got a classic for you today. One of the most memorable 70s/80s shows. I think you guys are going to be in for a real kick this time. It's
The Dukes of Hazzard.
One-Armed Bandit debuted on January 26, 1979 on the CBS Network. Written by Gy Waldron, directed by Rod Amato. Yes, this is going to be great. This is where it all started. And Dukes of Hazzard has a very interesting story. Not as long as some of the other shows we've done. But before we start, don't forget to
like, comment, subscribe, and
ring that bell so we can bring you much more where this came from in the future.
Let's start off with this one little interesting fact above all else. Did you actually know that The Dukes of Hazzard was actually filmed in Georgia for 5 episodes?
Vesper is correct. It's supposed to be Hazzard County, Georgia. All right, that's where the show takes place for all the fans.
The best place to start is with the production of this show. If you didn't know, this series was inspired by the 1975 film Moonrunners, and this film was about, if you guessed it, bootleggers.
Let's see, Moonrunners, directed and written by Gy Waldron, who did Dukes of Hazzard. So there you go. It's the same guy turned his movie into a TV show, pretty much.
Yeah, you know who else was also involved in this little film?
No, who?
Waylon Jennings.
Oh, we'll get to him in a bit. You know, one day we do have to see this movie, Vesper. I've never seen this movie, but it sounds like it's pretty much the same exact thing as Dukes of Hazzard. A balladeer gives the story. It's about someone who lives with their Uncle Jessie and is helping them to run illegal alcohol in the South. And then the show became the after effects of that. Like, now they're not allowed to do that anymore, but this is where it all started. So this could be seen as sort of a pilot to the pilot of the TV show.
So yeah, there is definitely a lot of Easter eggs pertaining to Moonrunners and the Dukes of Hazzard.
It's amazing that a movie that wasn't even that popular or didn't even do that well, it was like, yeah, that'll make a great idea for a TV show, and we'll even film it in Atlanta, Georgia. And it was like, wow, they really want that authentic feel. They had no idea what they were going to get into here, because the show is totally going to change its feel, and it's not going to be based on Moonrunners for that much longer. The show is pretty much going to become very carbon copy, where every episode is the same plot line, just changed around a little bit.
Yeah, I guess you could say it's basically insert crime. It may or may not involve out-of-town criminals, and then the Duke boys will then try to clear their name, prove it's not them. All the while, Boss Hogg and Rosco and eventually Flash will be involved in chasing the Duke boys at least once per episode. The General Lee will ramp something, and the squad cars will keep on crashing, which makes you go, how the heck do they have any cars left at the sheriff's station?
I know, the budget for the police station must be billions of dollars. Yes, that is the plot of Dukes of Hazzard. The pilot is really going to take a lot of the themes from the movie, as Vesper said, and it's going to try to shape what the show is going to be. But no, after these 5 episodes, when they moved it to the Warner Brothers Burbank Studios, after that, the show has a totally different feel, and that's what the rest of the 7 seasons would be. I think looking at the pilot's interesting, but just realize this is not what the show is going to be, because it's going to take on a more comedic and pattern-based feel to it after all. And that's really all the history you need. It's not like, wow, there's anything deeper. No, it's just Gy Waldron said, hey, why don't we make a show out of this? They said, sure, and that was it. It's really as simple as that. And they even kept, like Vesper said, Waylon Jennings, who's going to do the music.
Yeah, and do you know that another fun little trivia fact? The opening to the Dukes of Hazzard really doesn't change throughout the 7 seasons, except for when they replace the Dukes for that one bad season.
Just a good old boy.
But that is the theme song to Dukes of Hazzard, and it has been for all 7 seasons, and it's sung by Waylon Jennings. Always going to hear Waylon Jennings, but he's also the music performer of this show too. So he wrote the theme song. All these moments are from this pilot episode, by the way, and it's going to be that way for all 7 seasons, and the only time it changes is when a new character is inserted, but it's just one little frame with the name, and then they go right back to the same original footage after.
9/10 of this footage is from the very first episode that we watched.
How many times in the show do you see that happen through 7 seasons where the credits barely change? I'm not a fan of this. I'm not saying this is a good thing. I'm saying this is a bad thing. We reviewed A-Team, Knight Rider, G.I. Joe, Transformers. Every season's had a new credit. Oh, it has a new feel. It's a fresh coat of paint. Not Dukes of Hazzard, no, it'd be the same exact opening every single time. This song was very iconic to the whole show, and anytime you heard this song, just the good old boys, you knew right away Dukes of Hazzard, and it was really great how they implemented everything. But of course, the show is only as good as its cast members.
Oh, that's right. Let's start our character roll call with Bo Duke, played by John Snyder.
So yeah, believe it or not, Dukes of Hazzard was his breakout role. Like, he was an unknown before Dukes of Hazzard, and then became a mega big star after Dukes of Hazzard.
Although you'll definitely recall him here recently if you watched Smallville. He was Jonathan Kent from seasons 1 to 5.
Dukes of Hazzard was known for, so he'd always do like something related to that. You know, he started Dukes of Hazzard in 1979 and still acting to this day, so hey, good for him. Now, let's talk about the Bo Duke character. Describe this blonde-haired hero of ours.
I can sum him up like this. He likes fast cars and faster women.
Wilder, younger, lustier one. He's always going after the young chicks. He always wants to do things without thinking of the consequences. That was the Bo Duke character. And believe it or not, he was the one that drove the car. So anytime they're about to get in trouble, it's Bo Duke. So who's the one that's supposed to keep our main star here in check? That's his cousin, Luke Duke. So who played Luke Duke? That would be Tom Wopat. Darker haired, more sensible, more mature and rational cousin of the duo, but still he has no problem getting into trouble with Bo when the time comes.
Tom Wopat was definitely more of a singer than an actor. As a matter of fact, they even brought him back for a brief stint in Smallville just as the friend of Jonathan Kent, so they get the gang back together.
So Luke Duke, we mentioned a little bit about him, but just to finish up, he would always be the one that has to come up with the plans to get them out of situations, so that's Bo and Luke. So now they have a relative, a very famous relative, and this name is actually a term used for clothing.
That's right, and if you guessed it's Daisy Duke, you're absolutely correct. Daisy Duke is played by Catherine Bach, the cousin of the Duke boys, which, as Uncle Jessie quite literally put it, is the hope of the family because Bo and Luke weren't ever going to get married.
She's actually very talented. A lot of people think, oh, it's just that sexy woman from Dukes of Hazzard, and she's a beautiful woman. I'm not going to say she's not. But she also had some very good roles in this show. She was sort of played the role of the helpless female and then pretty much beat up anyone that was trying to take advantage of her. She was great like that.
Did you know that Catherine Bach's debut was actually as one of the children in The Sound of Music?
We looked at Catherine Bach, we were like, wow, she didn't really have much. I mean, Dukes of Hazzard, everyone knows her from, but you would think she would have done much. No, she just had the right look and that was it. And they just went with it.
We also have to throw in one other thing about the stories of her Daisy Dukes, those short pants. Well, Catherine Bach did not like the idea of wearing basically these short shorts, the Daisy Dukes as they would eventually be called. And then the producer said, hey, go to the restaurant across the street from where we're filming at. And then guess what? The waitresses over there were wearing mini skirts that matched the tablecloths that were even shorter than these Daisy Dukes. So she's like, wow, I feel so lucky as to be able to wear this much clothes. But then again, in the actual first episode, she ends up wearing this.
She was a sex icon, beautiful, reason why people watch this show. She was a focal character, but she was not the stereotypical dumb female character that you saw in a lot of these 80s shows. She had a great head on her shoulder. She was probably more intellectual than Bo and Luke were. Now, Uncle Jessie is, again, based on a character from the movie. This is pretty much verbatim the character that was in this movie.
That's right. It's Denver Powell as Uncle Jessie. Boy, oh boy, did they not know what to do with this guy in this first episode, I'll tell you what.
And his career is big. He's no longer with us. He's been gone since the late 90s, but he was old even at the time here.
And he was the oldest person on the cast because he was born in 1920.
So yeah, he was in everything. This guy had a very, very long career, and good for him. Well-deserved, great actor. So that's Denver Powell, and he's going to play a very important role because you need a patriarch, right? You need a leader. Like, he's like the Mrs. Garrett of Facts of Life. I know it's a weird example, but he pretty much plays the same role where all these kids and teenagers and young adults need someone to be leading them, and that's pretty much the Jessie character. And he owns the farm that they all live on in Georgia in Hazzard County, but they used to be moonshiners, and now they're not doing that business anymore. But Jessie is still a very religious and righteous man. He still tries to do it right, and even with the moonshining, he felt that was the right thing to do. And somehow he's always going to be angry or mad at the guys because they did something wrong, and he wants them to take care of this. That's going to be what Uncle Jesse's role is going to be in this show.
Yeah, he's also a freaking hypocrite, but we'll get to that. And now, let's talk about our main villains. And as we know, evilest person on one of these shows, at least to California, is somebody that wears a cowboy, as we've mentioned before in the A-Team and other reviews.
We have one. His name is Boss Hogg. His real name, Jefferson Davis Hogg. He owns the county, has every business here. He's the man, he's the money, and he's also corrupt. So there you go.
And he is also played by Sorrel Brook.
Yes, Sorrel Brook passed away in 1994, sadly, but what a great actor. Everyone on the cast loves him. I've never heard anyone badmouth this guy. Like, we've done shows like 18 where everyone badmouthed the cast. I've never heard a bad word spoken about this man. He was like a caricature of this weird southern corrupt guy. He did it so brilliantly that everyone loves Sorrel Brook, and may he rest in peace. What a wonderful actor. He was in movies from the 1960s all the way to the early 90s. He did voices. He was even in Rockadoodle as a voice. I mean, he was
as
still
Pinky the manager of all things.
I know. I mean, come on. He was all over the place. And then TV, he did every show you could think of. Little House of Prairie, Dick Van Dyke Show, Columbo, Kojak, Kung Fu. He was one of those, hey, you need an evil guy, I'm your guy. He was definitely typecast, but happily so. Hey, you know what they say about typecast characters? You always have work. That's
wow. Check it out. He was in Kolchak, the Night Stalker, as Mr. Eddie. Wow.
Little House on the Prairie, Good Times, What's Happening. I mean, name a show, this guy was probably in it. I mean, he was all over the place. Let's be honest. Boss Hogg is the glue that kept this show running. Without him, you have no show.
Absolutely. If you're going to have a corrupt sheriff, you gotta have a corrupt somebody above him, and he is actually a city commissioner.
He plays the character pretty much how it's going to be, but it's going to become a little more cartoony and silly as the show goes along.
And I do want to add this because this is actually noteworthy about not only Boss Hogg, but by his closest minion, Rosco P. Coltraine, is the fact they never really tried to hurt or kill anyone because he was just interested in money. He didn't come up with plans to run guns or anything that would kill or hurt people. All he was interested in was money, and it's a very unique take on a bad guy because you know he's evil, but there's a line drawn that he won't cross. It makes you respect Boss Hogg because he actually became one of the more favorite characters on the show.
Even the producers realized, wow, bad guys can be loved too, and Boss Hogg became that character. You watch the show more for Boss Hogg. What's he gonna do? What type of interaction he's gonna have? So Boss Hogg was the great character, and he had this mysterious wife, and they actually mentioned her in the first episode, who you will see sometime. Her name was Lulu, and the whole connection between Boss Hogg and Rosco, the sheriff, is that Boss Hogg married Lulu, his fat, ugly sister, and now pretty much that means Roscoe's in debt to him.
So now that we mentioned him, we got to mention Sheriff Rosco P. Coltraine, and he is played by James Best. And I tell you what, the sheriff you get in the first episode is not the sheriff you're going to get in later episodes.
No, this character is going to change a lot too. He's going to become stupider, more naive, and more silly. So James Best is again no longer with us, died in 2015. And boy did he leave his mark on the world as Rosco P. Coltraine.
And his faithful dog Flash, unfortunately not in this episode.
No, Flash doesn't show up till later. So everyone in this show pretty much was in Western. Is that fair to say all the actors were in Westerns of some sort?
Oh, absolutely. Now you gotta remember, all these actors are from like the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. That's when they were born. That was also when it was the height of the cowboy film and TV shows. And here's something that's quite interesting about Best, is the fact that he guest starred in more than 280 television shows before getting onto the Dukes.
Look at what a career this guy had, and it wasn't until this silly show, Dukes of Hazzard, made him a legend. I mean, he was on every Western you could think of. So what can we say about Sheriff Rosco Coltraine? He's a very important character, too. And in the pilot, he is sort of the focal character in the pilot. But in the other episodes, he's not going to be the focal, but he is going to be just as important as Boss Hogg. He's sort of going to be the one that does the dirty work for Boss Hogg while he's sheriff of Hazzard County.
And here's the funny thing. In the opening show, you actually find out that Rosco wasn't always a bad guy.
And he's going to be always chasing the Dukes around. Sometimes he'll be responsible for criminals that are in the city. Sometimes he's not. Sometimes he's just trying to stop the Dukes because they're good guys, and that's what he's trying to stop them so they don't spoil Boss Hogg's plans. There's always going to be pursuit, and Rosco somehow is going to be one of these crash cars in every single episode.
James Best and Sorrel Brook were just having fun with these characters. Whenever you see them talking to each other, you know they're dialing the knob to 11 because Rosco in the first moments is already at 11.
And now we'll mention one more character, because he's in this episode. Deputy Enos, he's going to play a big role in this episode, and he's going to become a regular. Who knew if he was supposed to be? They might have just thrown him in here and they'd see what sticks. But it turned out to be a very lovable character, and he became a major star of the show.
Well, that's because you gotta have a love interest for the female character. Deputy Enos Strait was more of a one-way type of love until later on in the series that you see Daisy starts to actually like him. And the only real sad story about this character is they had 2 times that he was going to marry Daisy Duke, and guess what? Something always happened to prevent him and Daisy from getting together, even after the reunion movie, and it's kind of heartbreaking that they didn't allow those two to finally hitch the knot.
Yes, played by Sonny Schroyer, he definitely did not have a big career. He is known for his role as Enos in the show Dukes of Hazzard, but he also had his own spin-off, Enos. Believe it or not, they tried to spin off this character into its own failed show. It makes no sense, but yeah, they wrote Enos back into the show after the Enos TV spin-off failed so badly. To describe the Enos character is to describe, like, how is this guy a police officer? How would LA even hire this guy? It's very strange. He's very soft-spoken. He's always nervous. He's always bumbling. This could be because he loves Daisy, as we mentioned. But even when Daisy's not around, he's always nervous. That would be how Enos' role would be used. Enos was so dim-witted, the Dukes would always trick him somehow.
Well, I don't think he was so much dim-witted as so much as trusting of his childhood friends, because after all, when you grow up with somebody, you know what somebody will and won't do. He's just a childhood friend that gets taken advantage of, because when you see their friendship played, it's an immediate lie from both the Bo and Luke Duke.
But when he came back to the show, this should be a fun fact, they kept that his personality was more of an LA cop now. He didn't just always trust them and do everything they wanted. He became a little more aggressive and not trusting of them. So that was interesting that when they brought him back, he did learn something from his LA stint. But there you go. That's the characters that matter on Dukes of Hazzard, especially with the first season. And I think now we are ready to finally delve in to this episode. And Vesper, start us off.
You know what? This is the Dukes of Hazzard. So how do we start out a Dukes of Hazzard episode?
Well, you start out with the preview of what to expect. That's what they did in every 70s and 80s show, right?
That's actually right.
Oh, well, that was a good guess.
Yeah, what were you all thinking?
As you can see here, this is what they did in every 70s and 80s, because you know what the problem was? There were so many choices on TV that they wanted to get you excited for the episode you're about to watch. So they had to give away a little bit, but it was supposed to reel you in. These are called teasers. They're like, they throw the reel out there, they're reeling in, oh, you don't want to miss this exciting car jumping over the thing.
Well, I'd be definitely biting after seeing Daisy standing there in that bikini. Now that we've gotten through our wonderful previews you've seen while we were talking, we start with a car chase, and we see the police cruiser jumping through the air. What? The Duke boys are chasing the car? Since when do you chase a police car in any type of episode?
It was very weird, and we don't know what's going on. They're racing all over through Hazzard County because Waylon Jennings, who is the balladeer, very clearly describes...
Probably noticed there's something different here. Well, this is Hazzard County. They do things different here. This is Bo Duke and Luke Duke. They're cousins. They fight the system.
Well, he didn't really say much except they fight the system. And boy, they must be really fighting, because Rosco here must be running for his dear life from the Duke boys.
Well, the Dukes are very happy, though. You can see they're grinning, they're laughing. This is all fun. So I get it. They like abusing the sheriff. We already sort of got that from the preview without even watching the episode. Strange. Like, now they're going to be heading into a construction site, it looks like. And this place is going to be used a few times. They have a very schlocky-looking set here where it's a construction worker has a gigantic diamond sign, caution, open ditch, and it's like all comic and like, oh, haha, open ditch.
Yeah, what open ditch? Because when they come to the construction site, that's not an open ditch. They're just digging a big old hole in the ground. And of course, what happens when you have construction in any kind of car-themed series? Well, somebody's got to jump it or wreck it. So what happens here? This chase keeps going on and on, because of course you got to have the guy take the sign out. They immediately run away, and then to show that they fight the system, Bo and Luke that is, they're like, you know what? I want that sign.
And we'll see if they get it later. But yes, this location is going to come to play. Now, before we go on, we want to mention the first few episodes were done in Georgia. It's not Hazzard County because there is no Hazzard County. There is a Hazzard City, but there's no Hazzard County. So this is done in Georgia, so they had to find fun locations to use while they're here. So they're going to keep going back to this quote-unquote construction site. It's really just a dirt road, but they're calling it a construction site because they have a guy with a sign there. So that's how they had to work around the limitations of the props here, and that's probably another reason why they moved it to Hollywood. They had a lot more effects they could work with, but still, it was very rural and rustic the way they did it.
Yeah, I know. In the later episodes, you're like, man, it's strange how Georgia looks like Southern California.
So now they're going to just purposely destroy things. And we're all for rampaging and destruction. You know, we're monsters at heart here. For no reason at all, the Duke boys are just going to drive through mailboxes after a poor guy just gets his mail and runs away.
And contrary, if you don't live in the country yourself, nobody really likes it when they destroy their mailboxes because they have to replace them.
And now we have another cliche, stereotypical construction site ending to our chase. We have about... How many of these? Like a dozen of these construction barriers, you know, on the two sticks with the long plank against it. And these two construction guys, one looks like a carpenter and one looks like a motorcyclist. I don't even know what they're doing on the site here. And they run out of the way as the sheriff's car is just rolling them right apart.
Yeah, because, you know, they want to put the barriers 2 feet from where they're working.
And then the poor sheriff car, instead of hitting any of them, diverts it and then flips over and the whole car is smashed. Well, after they flip the car, we find out, oh, good, now the Dukes are going to take care of the sheriff, right? No, it's someone named Cooter. It's like, Cooter, we got you this time. To this, why did the Cooter take the sheriff's car? Well, it appears that they took Cooter's car and Cooter took Luke's car, but then the sheriff took Luke's car away because he didn't have a license. So then he felt it was only fair. Hey, if they took Luke's car, I get to take the sheriff's car. That's the logic of this show.
The biggest problem with this is, don't you think the sheriff knows where you live at if you're literally a county hoodlum? So after we come and find out all this backstory that is never pulled on ever again after this one scene, we see that Sheriff Rosco P. Coltraine here is laundering some slot machines.
Yeah, so a slot machine pours right out, and we're like, hey, that's weird. And they're all like, we got him this time. So you gotta love the coincidentalness of it. Yes, he stole his car, and now the car flipped over. So now let's zoom to the next scene, which is Rosco P. Coltraine. After we find the slots, now we have Rosco, who's all bumbling and fumbling. He's like putting his signs up everywhere, re-elect Rosco. He's running against John Ledbetter. So Sheriff Roscoe is going to be replacing all the Ledbetter signs with the vote for Sheriff Roscoe signs. And this is another running gag. You always do that. It was always assumed that people do this in every town. Like, you see all the election signs, and then the next day you see they're gone. You always assume it's the guy running against him that removed all these signs and put his sign instead. That Roscoe's...
Was a actually good sheriff for 20 years before he started having some health problems, and then he decided that he wasn't going to retire with no pension, basically, so he decided, you know what, I'll take bribes. And who better to take bribes from? Why, from my brother-in-law.
Yes, Boss Hogg, and he's going to be a major, major character in the series. You don't have Dukes of Hazzard without Boss Hogg. You don't have it without Coltrane either, but Boss Hogg is the Skeletor of the series, pretty much. But in Boss Hogg's defense, and we already mentioned this in the opening, he just wants money, and that's all it's about. It's very capitalist.
And you're going to find out, because of just how corrupt Roscoe and Boss Hogg are, they just can't willy-nilly arrest the Duke boys or any of them, because if they arrest them, they're going to be put on a stand in front of a judge, or like, well, Roscoe does this, here's this,
right,
and we have the proof.
So they have to try to frame them and make them do the crime. That's why the show became that. They mentioned that Boss Hogg is eating breakfast, and the balladeer says,
Now, you can tell a lot about a man by what he eats for breakfast. Boss usually has coffee and raw liver.
So as the scene develops, they talk a little bit. Roscoe, I would like down and dirty like you, where I can pay you off. I don't like honest and ruthless. And that's what John Ledbetter is. And then Roscoe, feeling a little bit emboldened by this, is like,
listen, I'm taking all the responsibility putting them slot machines in, you know, and you owe me, boss.
I owe you?
Yeah.
Roscoe, I've overpaid any debt I'll ever have to you.
Because you married my fat sister.
I married your fat sister.
his wife will show up eventually, and she becomes a major character later on in the series. Boss Hogg is not a nice man, and there's always a price attached. And Roscoe's pretty much his henchman now at this point. So there you go, that's the story. Now we're going to meet another very important character, Uncle Jessie. Denver Pyle, and oh boy, what a great cast member he is. I mean, he plays his part so perfectly, like right out of the movie that we mentioned this is based around. And he's going to be the father figure that they never really had, but he'll spend breakfast with them every day. Saturday is the only day they get to be away from Uncle Jesse, where they go to the garage and have donuts and beer for breakfast.
After they have our little intro, you see that somebody's coming into their house. Can't have Dukes of Hazzard without at least one or more pretty girls being shown up. And what we have here is an old childhood friend who was quite homely when she was younger, but now grown into a full, beautiful woman. Who should be interested? Why, that would be Bo Duke. Breakfast ain't nothing compared to a pretty lady.
Yeah, so Jill Dotson, that's the name of the woman who shows up here. And she works for the orphanage, and she's coming by because she would like donations for the orphanage. And Uncle Jesse's more than happy to do it. So this is another part of the corruption. Not enough money was left in the funds to help out the orphanage. So that's why they need money, or it's going to be closed down. Pretty much, it's you pay your rent or you may close down. And it's always the orphanage has to be saved, and the poor orphans. And that was such a running gag, and this show, why be any different? We're going to play the old, they're going to close the orphanage down routine, and here we go, yes.
And the only problem with this is the fact when we actually do get to see the orphanage later on, for a small county that's rural, that is one heck of a lot of orphans for a single county like that.
Luke is sort of the smart one. He knows what Bo is up to. Bo sees a pretty girl, and Bo wants to now fully get involved with it, whatever situation it is. Bo couldn't care less of the orphanage, or he does, but not as much as he's making out to be. Luke wants no part of it.
Now that we've established what the B plot of this is going to be, after alluding what the A plot is with the slot machines, we have to go to the Boar's Nest and introduce one of the most important characters, and that is Daisy Duke.
And this place is so exclusive, which is crazy. They charge a $1 surcharge just so you can walk in the door. I mean, it's kind of silly.
This is 1979,
yes.
folks.
So before the Duke boys walk in, they look and they said, oh, Roscoe's running for re-election. And then they quickly and promptly tear it down, showing that there are hard feelings. So there is a rivalry between the Dukes and the sheriff. And don't forget, this is because the Dukes were arrested for moonshining, and now they're on probation. So we have to believe by this action, Sheriff Roscoe had a lot to do with that arrest.
According to this show, pretty much everybody in this freaking county moonshines, so it doesn't make a lick of sense.
Now we're going to see Daisy Duke is not to be taken lightly. She's beautiful. She's wearing the Daisy Dukes, and we already mentioned that is her iconic outfit. She's already wearing it. Yes, for 79, this is risky. Now that'd be like, that's nothing. A fight breaks out because everyone is flirting with Daisy Duke, and you think by now she'd be used to it. And it's kind of like Hooters, I guess, right? There's like a Hooters where you're supposed to be attracted to the waitress helping you, and you're supposed to make like passes, and you're supposed to think it's cute. Well, Daisy's not amused because it's random truck drivers that I believe work for Boss Hogg, because we're going to see him later on in this episode. And then the Duke boys try to play the chivalry white knight routine, and it backfires because Daisy has got this. She pretty much beats them up, no problem, while Bo and Luke get beat up in the process by her beating them up.
Look at it, she doesn't even lay a hand on the bad guys. She ends up punching her freaking cousins after stepping on his toe. So it's absolutely freaking hilarious because she hit everybody but the person she wanted to hit.
And they're fine, just a little humiliated by the whole thing. But again, this is going to set up foreshadowing because we are going to deal with those thugs later on.
Yeah, and guess what? Daisy tells everybody in the bar what these guys are doing. They're running and picking up those slot machines. Yeah, notice how everything's setting up nice and wonderful that, oh look, our cousin works in the evil mastermind's lair and learns all of his tricks and informs us about them. After this kerfluffle here,
hey, we could get those slot machines
and teach Roscoe a lesson, because guess what, folks? At this point, I guess they don't realize Boss Hogg is behind everything.
Yeah, that's kind of cool that you mentioned that, Vespors, because that is how it was, and I think they were going to play it like this until they realized, nah, let's have fun with it. He's such a good character, why hide him? Alright, so now we're going to head to the junkyard, because what better place to meet than the junkyard? And this too is going to change. In this episode, they show Cooter works here. Later on in the series, he's going to get his own repair garage, and he's going to be like a regular citizen. Here, he's just a wild man who's... I don't even know if he works there. I think he just hangs out there. They don't even really make it clear.
This wonderful junkyard is by far one of the cleanest junkyards I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's very clean. The cars are all nicely stacked. Everything's all organized. All the doors have been removed, because don't forget, when you go to a junkyard and you're missing a door in your car, you just take it from a junker, right? That's usually how it works.
Absolutely. That's why they make money on why they're willing to buy your old car for like $100.
Right, because they make money on the parts that they keep selling.
We meet Cooter and two of their other friends.
Yes, Dobro and Brody. All five of them are going to meet up in the junkyard and have a master plan. Yeah. Here's how we're going to get the slot machine. Work in coordination. We're going to have the Duke boys are going to be in the General Lee. Hooter's gonna be in his car, Dobro is gonna be in his car, Brody will be in the last car, and they're all gonna cover all the intersections of a major thoroughway in Hazzard County. The truck has no choice because there's not that many roads. It has to go through this road.
But before we get to that point, we have to have a wonderful chase through the junkyard and down the road where we see them like ramming each other on the main roads. And you know what, folks? For those youngsters out there watching this, remember, back in the 70s and 80s, cars were still built like tanks. Yeah, because they actually had bumpers back then.
Yes, with rubber and metal. Yes, I know. Amazing stuff here. We're showing a little history here on Vespors Retro Reviews. Now, what's the plan, you might be asking? Well, we're about to find out. It's a very cool plan, actually. So they're all going to be on the lookout, waiting for the truck to drive by. The truck drives by, and they start radioing with each other. Hooter is the first to see it, and it's a very, beat-up old 70s truck with a tarp over the back of it. Very obviously, this is the truck that they're looking for.
And so Duke boys decide it's time to enlist Daisy Duke here to use her assets to distract these guys.
Yes, now the reason the show took off, and we're not ashamed to say this because it's true, is Daisy Duke. She really was a very, very important part of the show. Catherine Botch was not afraid to show herself. She was still very respected because she never let anyone take advantage of her, but she was not afraid to use her body for all it's worth and to get what she can out of it. And that's just how it was back then, and she's very proud of the part and played it wonderfully. So in this scene, she's wearing a very, very tight and revealing bikini that shows a lot of her cleavage. Most of her body's bare, and these two drivers, and you gotta look at these characters here. One of them is wearing a chain on his head, he has a full beard, and the other guy just looks like some cowboy who lost his way here, some doughboy, and these two are the drivers.
Looky, what do we got here? Leroy, just leave that gun right here. I'm gonna scare that away.
Hop out, they can't wait to help her. She acts like her car is broken down, and the gag is Duke boys are going to show up behind them as they're gazing and admiring Daisy Duke.
And of course, they make them think that they actually have guns pointed on their backs, especially when Daisy just blurts out, "Oh, why'd you bring machine guns for?" Then they drive off with the truck, which in turn makes you wonder, why'd they do it with the General Lee?
The balladeer is like,
Ain't this fun?
what do you think of the show so far, Vesta, before we get back into it?
I think it's absolutely hilarious because of the fact that they've been fighting the law since they've been born. I love the fact they're not only going to fight the corrupt law, they're going to fight it and steal and do worse than the actual people who are doing the crimes to begin with.
That's the irony of the show. So we come back for a commercial and we see, oh boy, more sexual appeal. Now the women get to look at something. Isn't that nice? Or the guys who are into that. Luke is fixing the car topless and he's hanging over there, his muscular body. Oh boy, this is great.
All I can say is that he is a braver man than I, because when I work on things, I get grease and dirt on everything. I know that's why he took it off, but you're going to get that all over you, and I hope to God you haven't fired up that motor anytime soon, because you're going to scald yourself.
The point of the scene is Bo and Luke are trying to act like everything's all right, as Uncle Jesse very clearly is going to get eggs from the coop that's within the barn. So you very clearly see Uncle Jesse's walking there. These two are acting like, oh, whatever, whatever. They must know that something's going to happen here, and sure enough, it does. Uncle Jesse finds their hidden slot machines.
And apparently put them in the coops because you can see the chickens on them.
And he's like, boys, get over here. Now we're going to have the hypocritical part with Uncle Jesse. So he doesn't like gambling. He doesn't like corruption. He doesn't like any of this stuff. They're law-abiding citizens. And then Bo and Luke are like, wait a minute, didn't we moonshine illegally? We started moonshining before it was illegal.
And we pay taxes on the corn. And it's not gambling. And the whole point of the matter is he even asked him, what were you going to do with these things before he went on his tirade? Let's make money.
Yeah, so when me and Vesta were watching this, we're like, yeah, we get what Uncle Jesse's saying, but it's still very hypocritical. You can rationalize it however you want. Moonshining's illegal. When it became illegal, you can pay all the taxes on the products to make it. You're still doing an illegal action. So you can't be hypocritical and say, oh, gambling's a vice, you're not paying taxes on it, you're just trying to make money illegally. All right, well, moonshine, you didn't really pay tax on it either. You can pay tax on the corn all you want. You sold an item that you weren't giving any taxes to the government for it. You knew very clearly that moonshining out of your house is an illegal operation. Very hypocritical. Mr. Religion here doesn't like gambling, which is fine, but don't give me that, oh, you're not paying tax on it.
What makes it even worse is the fact that he's against this totally until they come up with an idea of how to fix it, and the way that the boys decide how to fix this problem is going, well, what if we give all the proceeds to the orphanage? We'll give these people 70%, they give us 30%, and that 30% they give us, we just go ahead and give to the orphanage.
Why would that be okay? It can't be like, oh, well, if the money is being used. No, you're still taking money that's not taxable, that's not proper. You want to get a donation, you have them donate to the orphanage. You don't say, oh, well, we're going to have them gamble in the hopes they'll win something. If they don't, we'll give that money.
Well, and the best part about all this was there was actually a throwaway line earlier. The reason they wanted to take the slot machines wasn't necessarily originally to make money, but was to stick it to Rosco. Then they decided, let's go ahead and make money off these. And then it just feels so hypocritical because you're going into this thinking, oh, they're going to fight the law, so they're going to take the machines, get rid of them. Dukes of Hazzard, to me, is starting to have the feel of Robin Hood, in all honesty.
What are they going to do with these slot machines? Now that Uncle Jesse agrees to it, instead of giving it to the usual places, bars and roadhouses and strip clubs and all those type of places, we're like, no, we're going to give it to the clubs of the town, fraternal clubs, civic centers, women's clubs, places like that where they'll do good and be sort of hidden, because Roscoe's not going to go to any of these places, at least not for a long time. So yeah, it's working perfectly, and days and days and days go by, and Boss Hogg is furious because his slot machines are still missing. The next scene shows all the profits that have been made. So Bo is so excited. He's like, look at all the money. We're assuming it's quarters. I don't know what change they're using.
I'm going to say it's quarters because I don't think it'd be a bag of nickels.
But he's all excited. He's like, I got something for you, to Jill. She's like, what? Money for the orphanage. She's like, oh, this is so sweet of you. And now we're going to meet some annoying kids, because, you know, if you have an orphanage, you need annoying kids. So what's this kid going to do? He's going to hang out in the General Lee, start spraying soda on their back window.
By squirting it through his front two teeth. You know what? I do actually agree with what Bo says right here.
I hate kids.
Now we're going to get back to Sheriff Rosco, and he's having a random drink at one of these clubs, and he hears a slot machine going off. Ding, 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 ding. Hey, wait a minute.
He starts to put 2 and 2 together. And you know what? Rosco is actually not too bad of a sheriff, because the guy actually asked him not to give him a hard time about it. He's like, oh, I'm not going to give you a hard time about it, because this is actually one of the fraternal clubs. And he's like, where'd you get them from? Well, guess what? Bo and Luke Duke. It's been a one-sided hatred towards Rosco, because Rosco has no idea who these people are until this point.
And now the fun thing is, Vespor, do you notice those fun pinball machines behind the guy that owns it?
Oh, absolutely. He's got some nice fun pinball machines. Back in the 70s, that was hella popular.
So now Rosco wants his revenge. He realizes what happened, and he realizes what they did with it. He's not going to stop it, but he is going to get his revenge. He's going to try to arrest the Duke boys, because they're the ones that obviously stole the machines, and theft of a vehicle is a crime in Hazzard County, or so he says.
And the person that they're going to go after is the lady, because they actually know what car she was driving. And guess what? The two drivers identify Daisy, who of course is bent over backwards in the car.
If you know them Duke boys got our machines, why don't you throw them in jail?
I will, son, I will, when I get enough evidence.
You? Since when?
Since when elections are coming up. Get out.
So Rosco is going to do a very direct approach. Daisy, I'm afraid I'm going to have to put you under arrest. And she's like, whatever for?
As we can see here, honestly, for a freaking corrupt sheriff, he's awful daggone nice.
Right, so he's like, I'm going to arrest you for hijacking. And Daisy's like, oh, golly gee, no, that's terrible. And she throws her pocketbook away. And Roscoe's like, oh, let me get that for you before I arrest you. I'm like, what? So what does she do? She does something really cool, but silly at the same time. She kicks him in the rear, he falls down, and then
And he pulls his gun like he's going to actually fire. I don't think he's actually fired his gun in this series, or if it has, he's only fired it like a couple of times, and probably not even at people.
So she's speeding away in his car, and this is like the second time in this episode that this has happened to him, it looks like. And well, she's gonna get away. Well, no, not quite, because randomly truck shows up to block her path here.
Yes, and I do want to point out, folks, that if you look to the right and to the left, looks like she can just go around the truck easily through the dirt and back onto the road.
Right, this makes no sense. Yes, the truck is blocking the road, but I like to believe a sheriff's car would be a little more durable, have better tires. It can very easily get on that little grassy hill next to it and just speed away with no issue at all. Daisy's gonna be like, oh, I can't go that way, but she's still laughing. She doesn't care. She thinks this is great. We have Brody and another friend, and they're delivering a piano. So it's like, what is this? A Three Stooges routine all of a sudden here? Yeah, pretty much. Because Roscoe's going to jump in the car with the piano delivery. He's going to order the other guys start driving while Brody's just holding on for dear life to the back, while now we have a real chase going on.
And
here.
This is absolutely hilarious, as they're just doing figure eights around this parking lot because it doesn't even look like Daisy's trying to get away at this point. She looks like she's just having fun.
So now we're going to have the comedy with her speeding around while delivery truck is chasing her. And then we have two guys who are going to go to the boar's nest to eat. I mean, they're acting all goofy, wacky, fat guy and his wife trying to avoid the car. I mean, they're trying to make this scene look so exciting. This is pretty much the silliest moment of the episode to me. I know a lot of you guys think, oh, this is fun, Ramsis. I think it's silly. It's all makes no sense. There's no reason why she should be trapped in this circle here. There's no reason why people are afraid of a car when you have that much time to work around it. She was in no danger of hitting anybody here. Why is there a piano truck? The guy's holding on for his life to the string on the back of the piano truck. I mean, they're trying to build this into something exciting when it's really very silly looking to me.
And I absolutely love the fact that Roscoe's like, chase him. And the guy's like, but I don't want to get arrested. He's like, by who?
Now the next silly part happens. Finally, Daisy comes to a stop. The delivery truck with the piano's like, oh no! And he comes to a quick stop. And then what do you think happens? Yes.
As we can see, it goes 5 feet in the air, does a complete flip, and then flies forward.
Gee, I wonder if someone manipulated that behind the scenes here with a rope and pushing it.
And I also want to point out, it's already flying apart midair before it
it's
even
already
hits.
falling apart. Stupid. So Daisy's like, oh no, and she comes to stop. And I'm like, this
I
is
also
so
like
stupid.
to point out the fact that she rolled up the window.
I don't mind a little humor. I don't mind a little hijinks and wacky and you know, slapstick. This scene did not look right, I guess, is the problem I have with it.
To me, I thought it was an absolutely stupidly wonderful scene. This scene encapsulates the silliness of this entire series in a nutshell.
So what happens now after the wacky scene ends? He rolls down the window, is like, oh, hi there. And she's taken to jail. That's it. So now Uncle Jesse in the next scene is furious with the Duke boys. And he's going to give him a lecture of how you two are pathetic. The bloodline has nothing to do with you two because you're not even going to reproduce. Daisy's the only hope that this family has for having a future. And now she's in jail thanks to you. So what are you two going to do about it?
That's right. So now guess who has to figure out the most complicated Rube Goldbergian escape plan? Why? It's the brains of the operation, Luke.
We meet a new character here, and he's going to become a regular. I don't know if they realized how popular the character we find out in this scene is. And this character is Enos Strait, played by Sonny Schroyer. And he's going to become a very, very big character in the show. He's going to be a breakout character. He's probably one we could have even mentioned when we did our breakout character series. He's going to be a reason that people are actually going to start to watch the show. For Enos, he's this quiet, goofy, well-meaning, but loyal
Virgin.
Yes.
They actually go out of their way and say he is known as a legend over Hazzard County. Is like,
kind of a running joke that this guy's so shy and pathetic that every woman can't stand him. Even though he's not mean, he's just awkward around girls. That's the problem with this guy.
and he also has a crush on Daisy Duke. This allows for a lot of plot holes to develop because he loves her so much that they can get away with anything involving her with him. But the other standout feature about Enos is the fact that he's one of the few deputies that is not corrupt here. I love the filmography of this because look right here. As soon as they open the cell, what do you see?
Ah, a huge thigh of Daisy just laying there. And where's Enos's gaze? Right at her thigh. And yes, they're really going to play on the sexual appeal of Daisy in the show, which is fine. But what do they tell Enos? It's her birthday. So we want to bring her nice clothes to change into. We want to give her a nice gift. So that's how they're conning Enos into allowing them to sneak in this. Well, we're not going to give it away yet. They're sneaking something in for them to use to help her escape.
I do want to say something. For as much as they say Enos loves her, I guarantee you he should know her birthday. Enos is their friend by going, hey, you should check this stuff to make sure there's absolutely no shotguns or files or anything in it.
And he's like, no, it's all right. It's good. As she's like making passes at him, still laying there with her thigh up and a flower hanging over it. I mean, they're playing it up so well. And Enos is getting so nervous the whole entire time.
This is the perfect Rube Goldbergian scheme that had to have everything, I do repeat, everything fall in place for it to work right.
Yes, so it's going to be a blow-up doll that they're going to hide in the bed, and Daisy has to somehow get out of this cage and make them think that this blow-up doll under the blankets is Daisy. Yes, this only works in TV, this will not work in real life. So Boss Hogg is going to say a quote that I don't think he's going to ever say again.
God damn. I wish those Duke boys were on my side.
It was very interesting that Boss Hogg realizes, wow, those Dukes really got one over on me, because he starts to see all the slot machines in one of the clubs, and he's impressed.
This is something that I do want to point out. You're going to see later on in the series is he already owns the town. Literally, he's the commissioner.
It's like, what else do you need? You already got it all. And he also says what we think was an out-of-character remark.
I got me 3 medals and 2 wars, and the only time I get scared is when you get smugged.
The actor did, but did Boss Hogg himself ever fight for war? Like, why would this guy, who's the most selfish, rich, uptight, greedy guy, he would never fight in a war? That makes no sense.
Sorrel Book was an excellent actor after he got out of military service. He did fight in Korea, and I just think that he probably brought that into Boss Hogg and was like, you know what? We're going to make money, let's lock him up, we'll keep him out of the way, but nobody's going to get hurt permanently.
Yeah, I think it was all about the money. I don't think Boss wanted, oh, I want them dead. He never once said kill them. He always said, just get him out of my way. The next scene, Bo is showing Jill how to use a bow and arrow. And she's like, why are you using bow and arrow? And that's where they explain they can't use guns because of their probation. It's part of the probation. But there's no law they can't use a bow and arrow. So in every episode, that is their weapon. And that became what they were known for. And it's kind of cool because I like the idea of them using a not orthodox weapon, like a bow and arrow. That's weird, but yeah, it was very effective how they used these in the episode.
And this is also where we find out that, oh look, she's not going to be a regular because she's about done with the orphanage and has to move on. And he's like,
what? And he's kind of like a Michael Knight in a very weird way, because Michael Knight always got the ladies. Bo sort of saw himself as a ladies' man also, but at the end of every episode, the lady always walked on. It was kind of like a Hulk where it's time to move on, play the music as they walk on. The woman never stayed behind. Now let's get back to the important part, which is Daisy in jail. How is she going to get out of jail here?
Well, apparently they don't put toilets in jail cells in Hazzard County because he has to go to the bathroom to implement the plan so she can take this woman and knock her out to take her clothes. Is nowhere near the size of Daisy Duke.
Hazel, honey, I know I'm a pest. But that light's not working.
She looks like she has 20 years on her.
I literally believe that this female deputy could beat the ever-loving crap out of Daisy.
Yes, absolutely, but it's a comedy show, so we gotta go with it.
So we're going to have the Austin Powers judo chop here. These deputies are so trusting to actually go in with the prisoners.
Well, the other funny thing is here, it's a deputy-only bathroom. I'm like, I guess they don't have a lot of prisoners in this jail cell because they're never letting anyone use the bathroom. I guess there's no bathrooms except for deputy use only. I mean, the whole thing makes no sense.
By the way, this is 79, so they had a camera watching the jail cell, and I guess nobody noticed that there's a blow-up doll in there instead.
Till Enos walks in, because Enos is going to notice, and that's why I say the plan didn't work as well as they thought. The blow-up doll did not fool Enos for a second.
And of course, you have to have the comedy. You have Enos figure it out and bring in a freaking blow-up doll.
All the cops are like, what are you doing with that? She's escaped. And everyone's like, escaped! And now you cue Keystone Cop music here because everyone's going to wave their arms around and start panicking, and all the cars are going to start to take off.
They're like, go get her! Now! He's out there directing them. He runs out, and then as soon as he runs out, guess what? Left his wonderful hat and glasses behind.
Oh, well, that was a convenient
for
mistake.
Luke, who was literally hiding on the roof, waiting for this to happen, jumps down, takes it to Daisy, who is waiting in the bathroom, give them to her as we run out and see that, wait a second, wasn't Daisy just in the bathroom? Who's this Daisy? Oh wait, it's not Daisy. It's Uncle Jesse with a wig and the flowers.
So what happens in the next scene? Well, Duke boys decide to go meet Enos.
And this is the scene that has plagued this series for almost 6 years. See Luke take the gun of some deputy, because you know who it is in the opening credits, and puts it back in his holster. Well, guess what? It's answered right here. It's Enos.
Yes, Enos' gun. Famous scene that we see in every opening. There it is. So what is going on here? What are they talking to Enos about? Well, so now we're going to have our Scooby-Doo moment. And what do I mean by that? Whenever they have a plan and they're talking to someone, this always happens in a Scooby-Doo episode. So what are they going to do? They're going to say, Enos, let's have a talk. And Enos like, it wasn't nice of you guys to take those slot machines. And they're like, we did it for the sheriff. He's like, that's ridiculous. I never would have guessed that. That's right. Let's tell you why we did it. And then it goes mumble, mumble, mumble as they play music. So yes, there's the Scooby-Doo. And here's the plan.
It all started about 4 years ago when Sheriff Rosco lost his head.
And this is where we actually get to see Ledbetter himself outside of a church, kissing babies and making over and doing what everybody thinks politicians do.
And Boss Hogg's like, you have no chance in the world to win this. And Sheriff Roscoe is even starting to believe that. Now, that's why the funny twist is going to come to play.
But here's the question I do have to raise here. It's obvious Boss Hogg is out and about, and they don't have any cell phones or anything. How the heck is Roscoe and Boss Hogg just running into each other every 2 seconds?
I don't know. It's a very interesting. Maybe they have a CB in their car, but yeah, it's always coincidental that wherever one is, the other just shows up. I think that's great. Bo and Luke now carry a slot machine out of one of the locations, making very sure slowly they put in the trunk, they hop into the car through the windows, and they're going to speed off. And Roscoe's like, I got him now. So excited. Now a chase happens because Dukes of Hazzard, we need another chase scene. It wouldn't be a Dukes of Hazzard if we didn't have at least 3 chase scenes per episode, and here's the third one.
And Enos, of course, is absolutely helping with this because he's the one that says they're going, and then Roscoe's like, I got him, and then suddenly as the chase starts, you go, why is there just a big pile of dirt that looks like a ramp in the middle of the road?
Mound of dirt shaped like a ramp with some barriers around it, and he generally just jumps right over it with a yeehaw. I'm like, why is that there? In front of the courthouse, we just have a random ramp for no reason.
So they can jump over Roscoe's car, obviously. I mean, look how fast they were going. The front wheel went sideways, and the front of the hood was crushed. And they're also not wearing seatbelts. I want to point this out.
Right, if you went over a ramp like that, the car went down, you'd be like,
your head would like hit the ceiling or the steering wheel, or both, and you'd be unconscious.
Something that you're going to see in every episode, the jump over something. It could be over water, it could be over the sheriff, it could be over another vehicle. It's going to be something you're going to be jumping over in every episode. And now we're going around town square. So imagine like Hill Valley, you know, Town Square, Hill Valley. That's what this looks like. They're going around all these quaint little local buildings in this town.
Donkeys are looking at them, but I do want to say one thing. Even though there's all this silliness going on and people are watching what's going on, I do want to point out this is Georgia, and this actually feels like what I want it to feel like. This is definitely Georgia, and this is definitely not Southern California or a set. They actually got a nice, cool scene to happen in this town, and I absolutely love the fact because, in all honesty, while it does get repetitive later on, at least in the first few episodes of this, it was filmed in Georgia and actually feels like they're in the South.
I mean, this feels very authentic what is going on here. I don't know if all that stuff was really on the street or they edited it. I think they just edited it because those are probably extras they paid for all that, but it really felt authentic, and that's why the original episodes were cool. Now, where are we going to head back to? Well, back to the open ditch, and now a joke that was started in the first scene is going to be played out in the last scene here. So what's the joke? Well, caution, open ditch. And guess what Luke finally does here?
He gets his side. I also want to point out that's not Luke if you actually look at that.
Yes, that is a stuntman. That is definitely a stuntman.
And I also love the fact it says open ditch and he goes up a hill.
So now we're going back to the original location that the episode started at, ditch, and I think the ditch finally shows up here. Yeah, he throws the sign away.
It's open both ways. Open ditch. Where's the ditch? Seriously, if there was a ditch there and it was open, what would have happened to Roscoe's car? It would have flipped.
But that's going to end our play with the construction scene. And now we're going to wind up to where the climax of this episode is going to take place. We're going to go to the orphanage of all places, and Roscoe's going to be so excited. They're going to go through a wall, which is ridiculous, and Sheriff Roscoe's all happy.
I gotcha! I gotcha! Well, this is where you're going to have two things come to light. First is the fact that it says, welcome Sheriff Roscoe in the background. And then the second is, Enos has a soul-eating smile. Looks like he's going to get the sheriff.
Yes, and then Sheriff Roscoe's feeling something's not right here.
And he's like, uh-oh, I feel like I'm about ready to be killed by my deputy.
So now comes the big M. Shyamalan twist here. What is this all about? What did they convince Enos was really happening here? Well, money was all donated by Sheriff Roscoe. That's right. It was his slot machine, and that means he was the one that donated all the money to save the orphanage. There you go. So he's now the hero because, remember, we said earlier, Bo refused to say where the money was coming from. That was very smart. Now we revealed, oh, he just claimed that it was from Sheriff Roscoe, and everyone believed it.
And now this is where we have the wonderful epilogue. We now see that there's like 30 or 40 or 50 different orphans out here.
Yeah, like, wow, where are all these kids?
And we also see, I guess, their parents or something, because there's an awful lot of adults here.
Yes.
And Daisy's like, oh, this was all your plan, and completely outplays Roscoe, and Roscoe's still like, what's going on? And this is where we find out that he's been played, he can't resist it, and so they have all this food for him and celebrations. Boss Hogg eventually even shows up. Jessie's there. Everybody's celebrating, basically, they pull Roscoe.
It's such a crazy ending, but it fits so well. Like, every cast member is back now at this party here at the end. The orphanage is saved, Roscoe's the hero, and the balladeer says,
well, the word got out and old Roscoe was reelected. which meant the Dukes could still fight an enemy they knew.
So there you go. The Duke boys were the ones that helped Rosco get reelected, all because they had to trick him so they wouldn't have to go to jail and make him the hero when he really was not the hero. So now Bo drives off with Jill, and the kid spits more soda on the window, and that is how the episode ends. And that was the first episode of Dukes of Hazzard. Like it or hate it, it's the first episode of Dukes of Hazzard. You got to start somewhere. And what a pilot, because it's not really like an introduction episode, but it is in that it shows us who all the characters are. It gives us the idea of the show. It explains what's going on, and then it'll sort of set the narrative of how the show is going to be. Vesper, our leader, our own Boss Hogg here. You might say he and Boss Hogg share a lot in common here.
We have common ground.
Yes, I think they learned from each other. Is my boss, Boss Vesper, we'll call him, will now give his review, and then I'll give mine after. So Vesper, what'd you think of One-Armed Bandits, the pilot episode of The Dukes of Hazzard?
I think that this, to me, is one of the more funner episodes, just because of the fact that if you're familiar with the series and you've seen it, it does get really repetitive, but it's still a fun show because of all the antics going on, because this is over-the-top crazy. That being said, it was a little bit all over the place on this one. It's because they just really don't know where to take the series. It's like, hey, we got 5 episodes in Georgia, let's go with it. Rosco P, Coltraine, and Boss Hogg become, I think, more legendary than Bo and Luke Duke. They're the ones I remember more than those two. They had the idea of a Robin Hood type adventure, and they develop it to that, but they don't really go too far outside of the box with it. They could have had a lot of fun. I think for the first episode, where they try all these wonderful and new things, I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. Why 3.5? Because you're not going to see anything like this in future episodes out of the first season. The Duke boys, their personalities are explored better here. Jessie's explored. You get to see everything that's going to become the legend happen in this. And because it spawned 7 actual seasons, it had to be well above average. Even though there are a lot of problems here, it was fun. And I can honestly say both me and Ramses have seen this 3 times.
Yes. I like the episode. I thought it was fun. It's a good way to start things off. I can see why this show took off. You have to remember there's the late 70s. We're looking for a little excitement. We're looking for something country. We're looking for something a little different. Based off of the movie, so that's a cool connection they had here, and they played up on that a few times in this episode, and that's the connection. All the characters are great. You have Luke and Bo have very different personalities, but they get along well. Even the General Lee, great character. The car is being used in every episode as it crunches and then drives away. It's a great stuff. Daisy, fan favorite. You can see right away why everyone liked Daisy. She has a great personality. She was spunky. She's powerful, but she also has a sex appeal, but she only uses it properly. Jessie, the old curmudgeon, but he's great. You have the bad guys who steal the show. Rosco P. Coltraine, the corrupt sheriff, who now is going to be reelected, and they're going to be stuck with him for a while. And Boss Hogg, the money-hungry, grubbing, greedy guy who runs everything behind the scenes until it's very well known that he is the main boss and the one to go after. So things are going to change. And then you have the balladeer, who is played by Waylon Jennings, the guy who did the music in the show, and he's going to have vocals in every single episode. It's great. And then, of course, Cooter and Neil's running off the cast. It is a wonderful set of cast members, and I think that's one of the reasons the show is so successful. You have such likable, diverse, and interesting characters all playing together, and we really believe we are in this county as you're watching this, and that's why I think this was such a great show that took off. This is just Luke and Bo wanting to make money instead of allowing Sheriff and Boss to make money. That's all this episode is really about. And then, in a weird twist, making Sheriff the hero, because that's how they cleaned up the whole mess by getting out of everything. Now Sheriff can't blame them, because Sheriff would not be the hero. He wouldn't get reelected if he revealed that it was him behind all. There you go. I'm going to give it 3 stars. Not as high as Vesper. 3 stars, only because I thought a lot of these scenes were kind of stupid. I mean, I really hated the Daisy chase. I really hated that Daisy car scene. I really hated that scene. I thought it was just played so badly. On paper, it's a great scene. In execution, it was stupid. She's driving around in circles and circles. She can very easily get out of that situation. She's laughing the whole time. She knows that eventually she's going to be caught. So what are you doing here? The piano looks so phony flying off. I'm like, this is a really cheap and bad effect. It's not even believable for a second. And then them breaking her out of jail was just as ridiculous. A blow-up doll, them sneaking out. I mean, the whole thing is just really stupid. It's stupid. I'm sorry. So it is going to lower my rating a little bit just because of the stupidity of some of the moments here. That doesn't mean I didn't like the show. I liked the episode, but For a pilot, you know, you want to see a little better. We needed like a little story to really get us into it. Oh, Bo is in love with the woman of the week here, and oh, Luke's the mastermind, and he has to come out with everything, and oh, Sheriff is all silly, and Boss is running it, and oh, Boss is gonna be all upset at the end. I mean, it was so like by the books. I mean, we had to do a little better. It's a pilot episode. They'll pan things out greatly. A lot of the stuff is fun. I love the stunts in this. I love the music in this. The theme is great. The music in the background is great. The characters are great. I think Sorrelbrook is one of the greatest actors in the show. Very underrated. He really was the reason why this show was so effective. You could say Catherine Botch, and yes, Catherine Botch is eye candy. She's a great actress, but Sorrelbrook is the real star of this show. Because without his characterization of this crazy character, the show has no legs to stand on. And it's only going to get better from here, folks.
And please do not forget to tell us in the comments section below, who is your favorite character? Were you like me and just sort of overlooked Bo and Luke and loved the side characters like Boss, Rosco, Uncle Jessie, and Daisy? Or did you actually love Bo and Luke? Whatever your choice may be, there is no wrong answer here on Vespors Retro Review. So that being said, please remember to like, comment, and
subscribe, and of course,
ring that bell
so we can bring you a lot more where this came from in the future. And with that all said, this is going to end our pilot review of Dukes of Hazzard, One-Armed Bandits, the first episode of the Dukes of Hazzard that debuted in 1979. What a great show. It's only going to get better from here. And yeah, hopefully we'll show you guys some more. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Be sure to watch all the pilot episodes. We now have a nice assortment. Enjoy the pilots. There'll be a lot more to come.